Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I cannot see who has joined our discussion. So, but I hope that those people who were interested, right, were able to to log in, right, and to join us today. So basically, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mikhail Gulablesova, and I'm a full-time faculty member in Sociology Department of American University of Central Asia. And I've been teaching at ACA in Sociology Department since 2002. So quite a big teaching experience. And about a year ago, I have joined a team of international experts from different disciplines who worked on the design of the curriculum for the new program on talent development. This project was financed by European Union under the Erasmus program. So basically, I'm kind of happy to announce that we have opened a new graduate program on human resource and talent development at AUCA, and we basically are kind of waiting or looking forward to motivated students, talented students who are eager to master or to learn more kind of about the modern skills and technologies that are applied now in human resource, in HR and talent development. And today we have quite a good opportunity not only to talk about this new program, but also to discuss how sociology and HR and talent development are related. And for this, I'm happy and quite honored to introduce my colleague and one of the key members of our team who worked on the curriculum of this new program, Dr. Heiko Schrader. And Heiko Schrader. And he's a professor of sociology at Magdeburg University, chairman of the Center of Transformation Research, and a member of the master course program of peace and conflict studies. And he's also a member of the faculty council at the university. Please, Heiko, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the friendly introduction. And the first thing what I want to mention is that, well, we have a long tradition of cooperation, which dates back to the year 2009. And from that time onward, I have regularly visited your university, your faculty, and I have been teaching over there. So what I am not doing today is I do not advertise for the program because this is your task. What I would like to do is to talk about the position sociologists might take in human relations management. And I have prepared some folios. Perhaps we put them into the window now. Does it work? Yes, it works. Okay. I would like to talk about the embeddedness of human relations management in culture and society. And I start with a folio of the partners, 6 universities from Central Asia, 2 from Kyrgyzstan. And we have 4 European partners who were a kind of advisors to set up that curriculum. Yeah, what I'm going to talk about, you see here the 3 topics which I would like to touch. We have not so much time, and so far I have to speed up a little bit. And I would like to start with the field, the interdisciplinary field of human relations management. You see this big blue block. This concerns all economics, business administration, management, and so on. And many of you might think about this when they hear about human resource management. But of course, we have also involved psychology that may contribute with perspectives on individual behavior at the workplace, hierarchies, and so on. Then we have the law departments involved in the different universities, and of course law concerns, for example, labor law and standards in organizations. And then comes the field of social science, where I would like to talk about today. So I start with one of the most famous sociologists, but he was an universal genius, Max Weber. And Max Weber, during the 1920s, thought about the relation between the economy and society. And he had a very clear-cut stance to say, well, the economy is a kind of subsystem of society, and when we take human relations management, it would be again a subsystem of economics. So the relation, the society is the big, then the economy is the smaller, and human relations management is even smaller. We have later on certain sociologists, anthropologists, one of them Karl Polanyi, and he talked about the embeddedness of the economy in society, and he had a very particular view to say, well, later on the market began to dominate society and so on. And I think he was wrong in this very strict perspective. Later on, other sociologists during the 1980s, Mark Reinovetter, said, no, also in modern societies, the economy is embedded in society. And this is the perspective I would like to take. And I talk about market societies, not market economies. Market society means always it is the perspective of society onto the market, or into the market and into the economy. Yes, I would like to introduce two economists. The first one, Ludwig von Mises, and he said a very peculiar thing which I like very much. He said economics does not describe how the economy functions, but how it should function. It's a very clear-cut normative approach. Yeah, so who follows this line would say, well, I'm not very much interested in the practice, what is going on, but of course I give something like best practice to say how it should operate. I'm not in line with that position. We could say, well, economists do that. They talk about best practice. We do something else or so. I am more with the institutional economists. I mentioned some here, Veblen, Mitchell, and so on. And one particular scholar from economics, Douglas North, and he showed an interesting perspective. He talked about institutions, and of course we have to consider now what are institutions. So we could say institutions are thickened rules or modes of conduct, thickened modes of conduct, I would say, which are established as rules or norms. Yeah, and that's very important. And when we think about culture, whatever it is, culture is a very difficult term. I try to explain it a little bit later on. Culture and institutions, I would say, mutually influence each other. So when we think about what are formal rules, yeah, we can study it easily. It is, for example, laws and regulations which we find in companies. When we talk about informal norms and rules, it is much more difficult to really investigate them. I think we need qualitative research. We have to take interviews with people, yeah, to find out what are these norms and rules which they follow, and so on. Or we can do participant observation. So we can treat these normal, informal rules at the economy level, but we can also bring it down to the company level. And this is what we are doing in human relations management. Yeah, now I come to talk about textbooks. Yeah, and when you go into your library, or when I go into my library and I take a textbook and I look into it, I see again best practice, first of all, yeah, how it should be, how human relations management should work. And what they don't mention is whether this best practice is designed for their own country or for the entire world. They always don't emphasize that what they found out to be best practice is somehow related to their own culture. Yeah, so when we take these textbooks, we see first of all, these textbooks are primarily from the United States. Of course, we have also textbooks in Europe. And when we really look into these textbooks, we might already find differences in them. So I would like to bring in the discussion of varieties of capitalism. This discussion comes from social science, from economic sociologies, and the varieties of capital discussion says, well, the business culture, for example, in the Anglo-Saxon countries is different from continental Europe in a number of perspectives. Yeah, so on one hand, we have the so-called liberal market economies, which refers to the Anglo-Saxon position. Yeah, and it is very neoclassically, neoliberally oriented. On the other hand, we have the coordinated market economies, the CME, and here we refer to Germany, to Japan, to Sweden, Austria, and so on. Yeah, and these two seem to be different from each other. This goes back already for some time, but nevertheless, it's important to see there is perhaps not one capitalism, but we have perhaps different capitalisms, and these different capitalisms are shaped in particular ways, which means this also impinges upon what is going on in human relations management. I want to mention just some differences, for example, the representation of laborers and employers' interests. So we have very strong labor unions, for example. In Europe, we have collective bargaining between labor unions on one hand and employers' organizations on the other hand. Yeah, this is typical for Germany and for the coordinated type of market economies. And in the US, it is very different because there the individual and his boss directly bargain with each other. And here are several things mentioned where we see differences. This concerns a lot of things in companies, for example, whether short-term profits are pursued. Yeah, this is the American model again, or whether long-term profits are pursued. This would be the continental European model again. Yeah, there are many things which we cannot consider here. I think one idea came up into my mind when I thought, well, why do many human relations managers think that there is one best practice which fits all over the world? And perhaps my answer is this may be related to neoliberalism and the Washington Consensus. Insofar, until then, we said, and even economists said, we have to treat different societies and economies differently. We had, for example, an own economics for developing countries. to say they need a different treatment than normal industrialized countries. But with the Washington Consensus, all that was gone, and there was only one remedy for the entire world. And maybe that's the reason why they believe in one best practice. And I say there is no such one best practice, but we have to take culture into consideration. And here some characteristics of culture of Central Asia. So I don't talk about culture as a primordial thing, but culture is something very, very fluent, very, very flexible. And on one hand, culture consistently changes, but we see change as well as a certain continuity in culture. So I would say Central Asia has certain characteristics of socialist societies or post-socialist societies. I mentioned some things here which we know from our own investigations to say this is very specific to socialist or post-socialist societies. On the other hand, of course, from the income, Kyrgyzstan would belong to developed countries, and they again have a very specific structure. Then we have certain specifics in Central Asia concerning, for example, the re-traditionalization of culture, the invention of tradition, which happens all over Central Asia, to say, well, we originate from nomads and so on. That's very specific things. We have a certain rollback of gender roles insofar that during the Soviet Union's time, gender, at least what concerned workplace, was probably much more equal than nowadays, and. All these are specifics which we have to take into our minds and when we talk about human relations management. So of course, Central Asia is to some degree market society. On the other hand, it has features of post-socialist societies, of developing countries, and then very specific developments, and all that should be taken into consideration when we talk about HRM. Now some examples which are related to culture. I start with one topic, diversity management. We took it up in one of our modules, and we too were also involved with that issue. So diversity management is very popular. It concerns age, gender, disability, ethnicity, and so on. And I would just like to give you an example. What you see here are the age pyramids of the United States on the left, Europe in the middle, and Central Asia on the right. Now let's think about diversity management. Everybody says we need diversity management concerning age. I would say this is an invention from the United States and Europe because of their age pyramids. We don't have enough young people, and therefore we have to work longer. And then the companies have to think about how do they bring, let's say, a few younger people and many, many older people together. It's a very, very particular issue of Europe and the United States, but you find it in your textbooks, which you would use. Also, age is important for Central Asia, but in a very different perspective. Age concerns cohorts which were socialized during the Soviet Union time. And they work together with young people who have never experienced that. That's one issue which is very interesting. The other issue concerning age, for example, that people marry earlier than in Europe and the United States. They get earlier children and all those things concern, of course, employment and should be treated separately. Yeah, another issue, labor. Yeah, when we look at the age pyramids from USA and Europe, aging societies, we have to invite laborers, particularly specialists, yeah, to come to our societies. Yeah, so we talk about the integration of migrants, diversity, yeah, migrants of ethnicity or so. Yeah, in Central Asia it's different. Your people run away, yeah, and work in Russia. Yeah, so this issue is perhaps not so important. Of course, you have some, let's say, Tajik people working in the markets or so. Yes, yeah, but of course, it's a totally different issue, starting from the age pyramid and out migration in Kyrgyzstan and in migration in Europe and the United States. Yeah, gender. I talked about the rollback already. Yeah, so I supervise a PhD thesis in Nur Sultan, and the topic of the PhD thesis is, why do we find so many females working at the universities? Yeah, one answer is because when you work at universities, you usually start a little bit later than, for example, in private companies, which means the women can bring their kids to the kindergarten in the morning. And after the work, they fetch it again. Yeah, so no wonder why people work at the universities. Yeah, it's very, very convenient for women. Yeah, and it's much more difficult in private firms. Yeah, so I don't mention the topic of ethnicity now. It gets also specific features in Central Asia. You now know that. So, recruitment and wages or salaries. We did own studies, own research in small and medium enterprises, investigated them in Russia and in Eastern Europe. And of course, what we found is that the recruitment schemes in SME don't follow the best practice to take the best. Yeah, it is totally different mechanisms. Yeah, there is more a logic of trust in personal networks. Whom can I trust? This is first of all family members. Yeah, sometimes it's not family members because family members are so close, and when they are so close, I have to share everything with them. Yeah, sometimes in Russia, people prefer to work together with people whom they knew from studying in the university or from military service or so. Important is that they knew them. Yeah, if they knew them, this means trust. If they don't know anybody, it means distrust. Yeah, so we know about blood and bribery to find a job. We know about blood and bribery at universities, where in some universities diplomas can be purchased or so. Yeah, how can a personal manager look at a diploma and say, oh, this is a really good guy or good girl? Yeah, if they don't know whether this diploma was purchased or so. Yeah, again, this would mean this is no criterion here. Okay, yeah, then talking about wages, for example, we know from our own research in Kyrgyzstan, if you take a questionnaire, you would pose the question, what is your income? Yeah, but everybody who lives in Kyrgyzstan or has studied firms in Kyrgyzstan knows that people get an official income, they get an unofficial income to avoid taxes, and so on. Perhaps they have a dacha, yeah, and, yeah. So you see, this is much more complex and cannot be simply, yeah, found out with one particular question concerning incomes. Yeah. So again, this might be a topic which is interesting for human relations management. And one of my last folios is now, when we talk about small and medium enterprises, I would say they work differently than large enterprises, particularly small enterprises. I would say in general, the larger a company, the closer it is perhaps to these best practices. Yeah, the smaller the company, the more you get away from it. Yeah, the logic of small firms is, for example, risk avoidance. Yeah, to generate an income for the family, but not to make profit. Yeah, owners of the firm don't feel as entrepreneurs; they feel as handicraftsmen, artisans, or so. Yeah, this is all different. And the logic of small firms is, for example, informality. Yeah, to stay informal, to be non-visible for a number of reasons. First of all, tax avoidance, but there are other reasons. Yeah, for example, not to pay protection money for the mafia or some racketeering groups or whatever. Yeah, this is perhaps the life of small enterprises and businesses in Kyrgyzstan and other Central Asian countries. Yeah, I am almost at the end. We need not have to discuss these questions right now. It is just where I would say one has to think about, or you have to think about such question. Does HRM have a bias on large firms only? If yes, you have hardly any large firms in Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, the majority is small firms and medium firms. Yeah. Of course, how to cope with the divergence between theory and practice. Yeah, and of course, a question for the teachers. Yeah. University is a kind of glass house, and we have to get away from that glass house, and we really have to find out what happens in practice. How can we do it? For example, students could take internships. We could invite practitioners for the teaching. We could perhaps do research in enterprises. And this is my last folio, 2 books of mine and some colleagues, and on the other hand, the books on the varieties of capitalism and on institutions from Douglas North. So thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, we have only 2 comments right now, right? So by Nurik Kwabidin, no? Both of them.
Oh, very difficult question. Yeah, first of all, the question is, what is burnout? Yeah, I think it's a kind of fashion to say, well, I have a burnout, I have worked too much or so. Yeah, but nevertheless, of course, it's a serious problem, and indeed, enterprises of whatever size really have to cope with it. Yeah. So how can we release the stress in labor? So we live in very difficult times, not only because of Corona, but also because of, let's say, that topic of flexibility. Yeah. So some time ago, I don't know, 30 years ago or so, yeah, stability was a certain aim.
Right.
Yeah. Now, stability means something like you are not flexible enough. Yeah. So flexibility means everything around us and also at our working place and so on is in a continuous turnover. Yeah. When you go into, let's say, a supermarket or so, yeah, next day it looks very differently. Everything is rearranged, yeah, because they have to show we are flexible, something like that. Yeah. And the same what is expected from us, to be flexible, lifelong learning. It always sounds like lifelong imprisonment or so. But it means, we have to be flexible. Nothing what we nothing what we learned, is consistent for some time. Time is speeding up. Yes, of course, first of all, it has to be recognized in the companies and also by the state that burnout is a severe problem. And the only chance that people can recover is that they are freed for some time, that they get some, I don't know, illness money or so, that they can recover and then hopefully can come back. And of course you can release the stress at the working place. I think it's possible.
And I just would like to add slightly, how sociologists can help. Basically, we equip students with research methods tools, right? And these conceptual tools that you said. So we basically can offer them some frames on how they can actually understand and measure work environment, burnout or stress, whatever you call it, climate in organization. And but not only the these tools and methods of measuring, but also what I also think is quite important to analyze the discourses of burnout and why people talk about it. What do they say? How they say it, right? And for what reason, right? They actually talk about this quite often. And of course, the burnout can happen in any organization, not only the commercial organization, as was mentioned, like NGO, right, or some different people can talk about the different kind of stresses, right, conditions and so forth. That's for sure. And basically, the sociology equipped not only with the conceptual frame of understanding, but also with the tools that will help to understand this this in organization.
And I would say, so first of all, what we know from Europe, for example, is that many people are nowadays afraid to talk about that.
Right.
They are afraid to talk about that because they are afraid to lose their jobs. And
right.
on the other hand, we know the earlier they would report, so much easier it is to recover.
Right.
So of course, first of all, we have to build up a climate that people are ready to talk about their burnout, to talk with their employers, not to risk to be fired and so on. So what are the labor laws and that's one thing. But of course, that there a certain we have that in, let's say, what we call this continental capitalism or so, that there is a certain same interest between laborer and employer.
Right.
Namely that the laborers feel well at the working place, feel well in the firm where they work, because then they are working much more productively and so on. That's one thing. And here it's again a difference between the US capitalism and the European capitalism also. This would be one thing. That the employees don't feel, that's my boss, he only wants to fire me, but that they feel, he feels responsible and so on for me. And they try to provide good labor conditions that the rate of burnout decreases. Would also be access to the problem.
Absolutely. And okay.
Yes, I would agree. This is a comment and no question. I would agree. Yes, of course. We, for example, at the university, we are much more protected, yeah, when we are getting sick than in the private labor market. Quite clear, yeah.
Right. But I mean,
Yeah.
this major, right?
Yeah. First of all, of course, what I can tell you directly, yeah, I have 2 PhD candidates, one already finished, yeah, from AUSA, and she had the best PhD in our faculty. Yeah, and now I have a second PhD student who is staff from your university. Yeah, and I see how good they are. Yeah, this is impressive enough. Yeah, not to say, well, they need different treatment, they are coming from developing countries or so. No. It's really, really excellent international work what they provide. And the other thing is, of course, you have one advantage. Yeah, you speak English, it is taught in English and so on. Yeah, you have much better opportunities to find employment even outside of Kyrgyzstan. I don't want to say migrate, not like that, not at all. Yeah, but nevertheless, yeah, of course, nowadays we need international networking, and so far it's really so important. And yeah, I visited many universities in Kyrgyzstan, not everyone, but many. Yeah, and of course we decided to cooperate with AUSA, not only because of language, yeah, but also because of quality of teaching.
Thank you, Heiko. And just want to also kind of add that the program on talent development is opened in 2 universities, at American University of Central Asia, and where the language of instruction is English, and Kyrgyz kind of economic university, and the language of instruction in that university in Russian. And these are the kind of, first programs on talent development in Kyrgyzstan, right? And we just started these 2 graduate programs in these 2 universities. So it's kind of, at some point, it actually fills the gap, right? Kind of, and there is a demand. I mean, we now see, we started this particular recruitment campaign, and we see that the demand is there. Many people, I mean, we've been contacted by the kind of, CEOs of quite big organizations or some private, non-governmental organizations, right, who are interested in basically kind of, sending their employees, their kind of, the HR specialists to this particular program. And I think kind of it was quite kind of important to open this particular departments in Kyrgyzstan and in all Central Asian countries, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, yeah, to say we are not only interested in bachelors who subscribe now for the master program, but we want to, yeah, bring back people from the private sector or also from the government sector, yeah, to study in this program to improve their knowledge about human relations management and so on. Yeah, this would be very important, and this would also be an issue where you bring the knowledge from practice in. Yeah, I think this would be very helpful. So I see the question whether I would teach in the master program. Probably not. At least it is not designed that we would teach in the master program. We were advisors in building it up, in bringing the structure into the curricula and so on. But nevertheless, of course, I have been frequently at AUSA teaching in sociology, teaching research methods and so on. And of course, it was planned that I would come in September again. Maybe it works. I don't know yet. Maybe not.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. And but that's again another program. We are planning to come to Kyrgyzstan with students of us. next spring in March, and do research in Kyrgyzstan, a totally different topic. It is on gender violence. And we would like to build a research team consisting of students from our university and from AUCA, that they work together during a particular period. Again, I'm not sure whether we can realize it because of Corona. We don't know how it is going on, but nevertheless, so I will show up frequently, and of course, when I give some lectures on whatever, please join.
So this is the question about the program, when it starts and what would be the tuition. The program starts this year. We basically started already the recruitment campaign, and all information about the program is available on the website. The tuition is I might be wrong here, but the tuition is $6,000, but we offer there's an opportunity to get the scholarship, right? So, but for more information, please visit our website and contact us via email and through the telephone, right? We are happy to consult you to answer all your questions.
Yeah, that's very complex, of course. First of all, yes, salaries should increase, very clear. When there are much higher salaries, probably this would result in lower corruption. Yeah, of course, there is a mutual influence of level of salary and corruption and yeah, but it's of course a very complex macroeconomic thing which we have to consider. Yeah, how to increase the gross national product in Kyrgyzstan and yeah, it's difficult. So production is not very much. Yeah, so what I know from Kyrgyzstan is trade, commerce, something like that, where you find most employees, but not so much production, which means you cannot export anything and yeah. So it's really difficult. Yeah. It's really difficult, and conditions in Central Asia are different when we compare, especially to Kazakhstan or so, where the incomes are much better. Yeah. Of course, I'm no politician or so, but yes, increase of salaries, I think, would open up more consumption. Yeah. Perhaps if those things which are consumed in Kyrgyzstan are also produced in Kyrgyzstan and not only imported from China or from I don't know, Russia or whatever. Yeah, of course, this would be a step into the right direction, I would say.
Well, I mean, the salary is low, but I think it's not the only factor that can actually motivate the people to work effectively, right? So there are a lot of people who, I mean, volunteer, which like work for and for no money basically, and who are very motivated and so forth. And there are also some kind of jobs, right, that are looked for by many people because of the security package, right, that it actually offer. I mean, quite interesting experience I had. We just recently conducted some research not related to HR, right, but I mean some other issues. We looked at conducted a focus group discussion among different groups of youth in different parts of the country. And in Karakol, right, I mean, which is a a city in Issyk-Kul Oblast, when we conducted the focus group discussion with some groups of young people, we asked them where they would like to work, right? So what work they actually want to to work in, to be employed in. And just many of them said that they want to become a social worker and work in that social kind of, protection department. And because apparently the people kind of, who work there and then retire, they have quite a high pension, right? At kind of, when they retire. So this is what, for me, it was quite a surprise, right? First of all, kind of, that the people kind of, have this perception, right, of this work. They know that the salary in that particular kind of, workplaces are not high, but kind of, they basically are eager to work there because of this high kind of, pension. And it's young people who basically want to devote their life to the social work. So this was quite kind of, surprising, but unfortunately we did not have time to go deeper in that and to analyze where this idea come from. Probably they had some project or some training, right, that this kind of, described all this kind of, this particular issue. Right, but it was quite surprising, right? So that the high salaries is not only the only factor that people are looking for, right, when they kind of, search for a job. Mm-hmm.
I would like to add an example where, again, the US and Europe are different from each other. So when we talk about on-the-job training, for example, we usually distinguish that people working in Europe get a very specific on-the-job training, which is important for their company, but perhaps cannot be used for other companies or so.
Right.
Yeah? So the worker becomes very valuable for the company because the company invests a lot of money in the training. Yeah, what is the consequence? Yeah, now during Corona times or during the last stock market crisis or so, yeah, people are not fired because they are so valuable. Yeah? They are kept in the companies. Perhaps they have a short-time labor at the moment or so. Yeah, but they are kept for the company. Yeah, and this is how, let's say, the interests of employers and employees are not necessarily contradicting each other. Yeah? In the same way, so you see, the US and Europe learned a lot during the 1970s from the automobile industry in Japan, yeah, Toyota and so on. Yeah, not this lean production or so, but concerning labor, because those people who were working or are working for the company are very proud to work for that firm. Yeah, they identify with these firms. Yeah, and of course, when all that happens, yeah, of course the productivity increases, and hopefully also the salaries would increase. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we don't have any more questions, but I mean, quite interesting when we talked about culture, right? And these textbooks that are designed, right, kind of that basically can describe a particular kind of, situation in a particular country. I mean, in Kyrgyzstan, of course, I mean, all of these theories, concepts, and so forth should be adopted to our realities, right? I mean, as we already discussed, kind of, this before, we kind of quite big share of our economy is informal economy, right? And there are quite a big portion of our population are self-employed, right? Or are farmers who work in fields, right? And kind of, and basically they generate the work by themselves, right? So, basically, but unfortunately, we do not have much research, right, except kind of, like few, right, that touched upon these issues. And we kind of, the development of this program, I think, is very important. It will basically, I hope it will boost research, right, kind of relevant to this talent development and HR issues in Central Asian region, right? And
yeah. So of course, I often discuss with Galina Gorborukova. Yeah. So your research training and my research training are identical. Yeah, and we work together in a large research project and so on. Yeah. So you have the equipment. Yeah. of course, research costs money. That's the other point.
Right.
It has to be financed. Yeah? But nevertheless, you are well equipped to do such research. Yeah? And when we really direct it, for example, to HRM,
Right.
say, how do firms work under the pressure of very specific market conditions in Kyrgyzstan, under the pressure of problems of exports to, I don't know, Kazakhstan and further to Russia or whatever. Yeah, of course, this is very specific things. And I was asked, how do you work? I say, first of all, I study the textbooks. Yeah, then I think, is it really universal or not, or is it culture dependent? Yeah, where do I see that it is culture dependent? When I find that out, I would continue, but how is it different in my own culture? Yeah? And once I know that, yeah, I can teach or perhaps even write an own textbook to say this is in general, or what means in general. I don't say this is very particular in Kyrgyzstan or so. I would say this is from the quantity. This is general. What is happening, yeah, in post-Soviet countries, in developing countries, yeah. This is from the number, the normal thing. Yeah, perhaps not these textbooks from the United States or so. Yeah. So it's a task to later on design your own textbooks. Yeah, to say this is best practice and this is how the economy really works. Yeah, that's quite good.
Right. Well, do we have more questions? Yeah, some kind of, a colleague of ours, also the one of the key members of our team, Eckhard Dietrich, was also here, right? Just would like to greet you. Yes, thank you. I think with your help, we already have a good start. I mean, it seems so. We have so many people interested in the program already, right? And we already compiled some applicants who are quite competent people, and hopefully, right, we'll get a good number of people, right? By September, right, basically. And as I have already mentioned in the beginning, you can find more information about this program in our website. Just Google, right, the Talent Development Program AUCA, right, and it will be you'll find the link to our website. And you can find all information about the program, our curriculum, the description of the courses, application, how you the rules, how you can apply, right? The procedures, how you can apply to our program. So the forms, the application forms, and so forth. So now you see the the link, right, to our website. Please visit our website, and please call us, email us. We will be more than happy to answer all your questions, right? And I think since we don't have any questions, we can actually finish our webinar. And Heiko, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative, right? And still, I hope that you will be able to deliver some courses or some sessions, right, in our program at AUCA.
Okay, now one more question. Give your website. Is it my website also?
Yeah, this is the website. I mean, the link to the website that you see it, right, on the screen, right? So it's basically auca.kg/en/ okay, good. So you see the link to our web to our program right here. Okay, so no more questions. Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us today. And please, I mean, this video kind of today's discussion will be posted in Facebook. And oh, good. This is a very nice. Good. You're very well prepared, Heiko.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time and for your knowledge and for your expertise. And dear teacher, are you come to in KG? I mean, one more comment.
Yes, I hope
Heiko,
I will come in
you should
September.
definitely come.
Hopefully. But we don't know yet because of coronavirus, you know.
Right. So please, if you have any questions, I mean, the video will be posted on Facebook and YouTube. Please write. If you have some questions later on, please type it in, and we also will be able to reply to your comments. Thank you very much once again, and I think we can resume our discussion today.
Okay.